Yeah. And some city tweakers.
We'll have all the trouble like this.
Yes, we do.
Just for that.
Who's not going to name it?
Yeah.
It's helpful here.
That's true.
Susan,
Big.
you ready?
We're good to go.
All right, good evening. At this time, I will reconvene the La Quinta City Council meeting for August 6th, 2013. First item on the agenda is public comment. Anybody wishing to speak on an item which is on the agenda, I'd ask that you please fill out a request to speak form like this. It's at the back of the room, and give it to our city clerk. At this time, anyone wishing to speak on an item not on the agenda may do so. Seeing none, then we'll move on to our public hearings. We have 3 this evening. The first one is a resolution to approve plans to subdivide an approximate 7.3 acre site into 11 lots located near the southwest corner of Madison Street and Cali Conchita. We have a staff report, please.
Yes, Mr. Mayor and City Council. Tonight we are looking at the application that you just mentioned. It is located at the southwest corner of Madison Street and Calle Conchita. And for sake of brevity, I'm going to simply point out that the application includes lots that are ranging from 20 to 26,000 square feet. There are 11 of them on approximately 7 acres of land. And the project has been reviewed by the Historical Preservation Commission and as well as the Planning Commission. The recommendations have been included in a staff recommendation. And with that, I'll open it up to questions and be happy to address any for you.
Okay, questions of staff. Brief question, and that basically, do you have any idea of them discussing how close they would come to submitting drawings and that for approval for the development?
Don't have any indications from them directly, but they are here in the evening and we could address that question for you.
Okay, and in their notification, in your conversations with them, have they been informed that as far as right-of-way landscaping, that they are going to be held accountable to do this work, plus whoever the homeowners, or whether it's association or that, are going to have to maintain that?
The actual landscaping has been deferred for until after Planning Commission, after City Council approval. Typically, we will address that with plans.
Yes.
At this time. They requested to move forward on it, so the actual project has been conditioned with a requirement that they come back to ALRB and Planning Commission for those items.
Yeah, just so long as they understand that this is probably one of the conditions they'll have to deal with.
It is.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, sure.
Sorry, thank you very much. I know in the Planning Commission discussions, they were talking about a sound wall on part of this because of potential traffic in the future right there. So have you guys made any changes to the effect that the developer will have to pay for that sound wall if needed in the future?
No, actually that was not included as a recommendation and is not part of a condition of approval. They discussed it and it was pointed out that the sound study that was done for the project took into account the advanced and future traffic noise that would be generated from full improvement of Madison Street at that point, and that there wasn't a need for a quote sound wall. So that was not included as a recommendation. And the Planning Commission understood that and they did not include that as a recommendation. They simply discussed it.
Okay, all right.
Okay. Unless there's anything else, I will now open it for public hearing. Anybody wish to speak on this item may do so at this time. Don't have a request. But okay, seeing none, then I'll close the public hearing and the matter is before the council.
With that, Mr. Mayor, I'll go ahead and make a motion. City Council Resolution number 2013-038. Resolution of the City Council of the City of La Quinta, California, adopting a mitigated negative declaration of environmental impact and associated mitigation monitoring and reporting program prepared for tentative track map 36403, case environmental assessment 2012-621, applicant Constance Chivarelli.
Second.
Been moved in second. All in favor? Motion passes. Okay, we'll move on to.
There's another.
And with that,
Oh, I'm sorry.
I would like to also make a resolution for number 2013-039, a resolution of the City Council of the City of La Quinta, California, approving the tentative track map 36403, same tentative track map number, that would be Constant Chivarelli.
Second.
Moved in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay, now we'll move on to the second.
So
That was easy.
Thank you so much.
All right, we'll move on to our second public hearing, and that's a resolution approving the placement of public nuisance abatement assessments on the 2013-2014 property tax roll. Staff report, anything?
Your Honor, Council, this is a standard annual process that when we do have properties in the community where we have had to take abatement measures and have not been able to remedy those situations, we brought them to you in order for the expense associated with that abatement action to be put onto the property tax rolls, which requires a public hearing and your action for that to occur. We have two properties over this past year to where there were cleanup efforts, a vacant parcel as well as a foreclosed home, one on Eisenhower, one on Palazzo. And we've taken the appropriate action to clean them up. The vacant property, as you can see in the PowerPoint there, you can see the cleanup that was done there with trimming and debris, brush removal. The second one, a little more difficult. There was an abandoned truck full of garbage, other items left, as well as material, brush and debris and whatnot cleaned up in association with that particular matter. We have, again, tried to work with those property owners to obtain our costs that we incurred. We have not been able to do that, so we're before you this evening for this consideration. We have this matter considered and those expenses put on the 2013-14 property tax rolls. So with that, I conclude my staff report. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions to staff?
I have one. And this, if this turns out to be a very stupid question, I won't be surprised. But looking at this map that's been included in the staff report, the blue is indicating in the ledger Overstreet, and the orange is indicating Sealy. What are those?
Those were the names of the folks that we contacted.
That's what I said. If this turns out to be a very
We reviewed a few streets in town.
But I guess it's because Overstreet got it. I thought, okay, we have an Overstreet up in the cove. Oh, all right.
There are no
Levity.
questions. There are no
questions. All right, this is a public hearing. I'll open up for public comments. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and matters before the council.
I move adoption of resolution number 2013-040, a resolution of the City Council of the City of La Quinta, California, La Quinta assessing lien and providing for collection of tax rolls on certain property for cost of abatement of public nuisance.
Second.
Moved in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
And of course, right there's the names of the property, which I did see, but forgot to connect the dots.
Okay, all right, we'll move on to public hearing number 3, and that's a resolution for the 5th extension of time for site development permit 2003-762 for a 208-unit senior living community located at the northeast corner of Washington Street and Avenue 50. The applicant is West Living LLC. Staff report, please.
Yes, Mr. Mayor and Council, this is a request for a 2-year extension. And again, this is the 5th time they've asked for an extension. This particular one does coincide with recent legislation that approved a 2-year extension for the map, which was automatically granted. So this will tie in with that future expiration date. There are no changes to the project proposed, and the conditions of approval are basically the same. We adjusted a couple conditions to reflect new code requirements, including the new TUMP requirement. And the applicant has indicated that they are accepting of those changes. So with that, I will conclude my report and answer any questions.
Great. Questions of staff?
Lee?
Thank you. So on this particular piece, the original permit approval was back in '04, and then later, was it transferred in title to West Living?
Correct, that
And
happened
purchased it.
during the fourth extension. They not only extended it, but they also amended the project.
Yes.
And previously, it required a conditional use permit also. At that time that they amended the project, they amended a specific plan, took away the requirement for the conditional use permit. That's why it's not on this application. And revised it, updated the architecture, and that's the and this is actually the first extension coming back for that revised project.
Okay, okay. And have we had any complaints or anything from dust or anything else off that piece right there?
We have had some complaints, not for dust. We, about 2 months ago, received a complaint with regards to the vegetation.
Yes.
And we did work with the developer, and they did do a 30-foot clear around the perimeter. You can see that most notably as you go along Washington, along that entire north wall,
Okay.
abutting those homes to the north, which is a standard requirement that we have if there's any potential fire hazard. And so that was conducted. We certainly wouldn't want the entire site cleared because then we could have a dust
Sure.
issue in association with that. But we did take away all of the brush and debris that was within 30 feet of the perimeter of the
Yeah.
site.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I asked him about that earlier because I did notice that there was that 30-foot recently and then
Yes.
had the green spray.
Buffer zone in there.
Yeah, this green spray on it. I was kind of surprised because I know once that's disturbed, well, then it becomes, it becomes your responsibility. So I guess this is gonna have to go on somebody's list for about every 6 or 8 months or once a year to check that and make sure it gets
Treated.
Well, we're hopeful that there'll be development activity within the
Yeah.
time that we would be to check that. But we'll certainly be watching that once it is disturbed. A lot of times though, when they cut that, it isn't a complete removal, it's just trimmed back. So there is the potential some of that vegetation over time will
Yeah.
regrow as well.
Well, I was encouraged to see their letter in here, and I do think that the product is going to be really needed, and I mean, much appreciated by a lot of folks that live in the city of La Quinta that have been waiting for this kind of a place to open up, so.
Has
I'm
staff,
anxious.
excuse me, has staff had conversations with the developer?
Oh, I'm here.
You're it?
I'm West Living.
Okay, well then, we'll hear from you. Okay. And I take back the request. Staff. Any other questions of staff?
No.
I
Linda.
do have one. What's the status of the assisted living project up by the Arduous facility?
It is still in the permit review process, working through both building safety and public works.
And that's 300 and some odd units?
It's in 2 phases. I think the first phase, which was independent living, was
266 seems to be.
yeah. I think the independent was maybe 140 units, and then the phase 2 was the assisted in dementia care.
Okay. All right, so they're moving along, so to
Yes.
speak. Okay.
Well, we need something more reasonable. We had at Rotary, we had the people at the new Alzheimer's project there on Callao Bay, and the question was asked, how much is it for an individual to be in there? $5,000 a month. I thought, whoa, how many people can afford that, especially with very little insurance to cover a situation? That's darn
I
expensive.
think we've got 6 residents so far that have moved in since they were licensed a week ago Friday. Yeah.
Well, they've had a list of folks.
Anyways, unless there's any other questions, then this is a public hearing, and I'll open up for public comments. I do have a request to speak. Roger? And give us your name and address for the record, please. Sure.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. My name is Roger Green, and I'm the Vice President of Development for West Living. Our address is 5796 Armada Drive in the city of Carlsbad. We're requesting an approval for a 2-year time extension that the city, of a site development permit that the city council approved in July of 2011. And although this is the 5th time extension for this property, it is the first one that we've requested since we had our approval in 2011. Unfortunately, we have had our project on hold primarily due to the economic conditions in this area and the home values. We would like to see a substantial change or significant change, as we all would, in our home values in this area before we move forward with our project. We use median home values as a good measuring stick for a market area, because the seniors that live with us typically use the equity in their home. They sell their home, use the equity, and move into a community like ours. So when our project was in front of you in 2011, which was pretty much the bottom of the market, home values in this area were approximately, median home values, approximately $300,000. And today, they're approximately $375,000. So there's an improvement, but we'd like to see more. So before, and I'd also like to mention before the council takes action tonight that, that on July 11th, Governor Brown approved AB 116, which extended the life of tentative maps by 2 years based on the continued adverse economic impacts of the state. And this is the 3rd extension he has made since 2008. So I'd just like to mention that this is still an issue for all of us as we move forward. So in conclusion, just we appreciate City Council's approval of our request tonight, and be happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Good, thanks, Roger. Questions?
Just to recap, when we did the change around in July of 11, was it going from a purchase unit to a lease rate or vice versa? How was the structure? Because I think that's something else that changed when West Living took over.
Yeah, we changed it from, I believe, what was called a CCRC type of service program that required an entry fee.
Mm-hmm.
Our program does not require that. This is a rental unit.
Market rate. Market rate rental versus.
Market rate rental. There's a service package that our residents would pay for, but it's on a month to month.
And that way you avoid also having to go through the real estate division in Sacramento.
Correct.
And all of the complications that that's setting.
Yeah, correct.
So you obviously identified a need for assisted living at the time that you took the project, and that's a continuum of care we still don't have yet in La Quinta. So we are anxious for the project at some point to move forward, because some of our residents need to leave our city when they need that level of care,
Right.
because it's not currently.
Well, we've done our market research, still tells us there's a deep demand for
And there will continue to be.
senior housing in this market, and there will continue to be, so.
As long as nobody builds one,
It's
there's.
just-
That's why I asked about the other project up at Sealy,
Right.
because they may be moving along, getting out of the gate, and, I remember your plans are aesthetically more pleasing to me
Oh,
than
thank you.
the concept up there, so I'm anxious to see what Paloma move forward. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Any other questions? Hold on.
Okay.
A question, will they be required to go through the whole process for approval because of the change of design?
Well, that was already addressed in 2011, so if this time extension were granted, then there would not be a need to go back.
So
to the
they wouldn't
process.
have to?
They would just be subject to the conditions of approval that were established in 2011.
Okay. Unless I missed it, Roger, what is your target when you're looking at housing as far as the medium house and that? What is your target
Well, we-
to say now's the time to get started?
We'd like to see it in the 450,000 to 500,000 range. That's,
I'm not sure you're gonna find that.
well, I went back and did a little research back in 2007. Median home values here were 600,000, and then in 2008 they were 450,000. So
You saw something that I've never seen. When you're talking medium house, and the only way to bring that up is a lot of Merv Griffin's homes.
Well, I think 450 will be achievable.
Well, yeah, 450, yeah,
450, yeah.
600, I'm not not sure that I've ever seen that.
Oh, I didn't say that, that's, I didn't say
That
that's
was
where
a
we're,
peak.
I was just saying that was in 2007. I'm not saying that's where we need to be.
You said 450.
It'll take a little bit.
That's achievable.
Well, we would like to get our project started, so
Yeah, so
just
would
be patient with us, and we'll continue to move forward.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and the matters before the council.
All right, Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion for resolution number 2013-041, a resolution of the City Council of the City of La Quinta, California, approving a fifth-time extension for site development permit 2003-762, including architectural site and landscaping plans for La Paloma. Site development permit 2003-762, extension 5, applicant West Living LLC.
Second.
Moved in second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay, thank you very much. All right, at this time, we'll go back to our study session, part 2.
Do you want to do the, I'm sorry.
This is-
We had that one other business item.
Yeah.
Oh,
Item
This is
14.
Yeah,
number
business
14.
item. Yeah, agreed.
That's right, you had that on
Yes, sir.
there. You're on, Lee.
All right, so, well, we had consent calendar item number 14 that I requested to be a business item. That was a request for proposal to obtain design build services for La Quinta Community Health and Wellness Center. And that, where we had previously discussed a cost of $3.3 million, or projected cost of $3.3 million. And my concern is that these funds for that improvement are going to be coming from Quimby funds and developer impact fees. And obviously we have a huge issue coming before us later this week with the state of California, but also regarding Silver Rock and our negotiations regarding Silver Rock. And I don't know that if we're going to need some of these fees regarding Silver Rock, or excuse me, some of this money for Silver Rock improvements, whether they be on the golf course or others within that negotiation, and much less what the state's going to do to us. So I think we should just put this whole thing on hold till we can find out where the state is and find out where we're going to end up on Silver Rock. Before we look at spending $3 million on additions to our senior center. I mean, it's a beautiful senior center. If it needs a little facelift, that's one thing. But I don't think we're ready to pour $3 million into it at this point in time, when we have two huge unknowns out there with the state and Silver Rock.
Well, it's a good comment, but I have a question for you. These are use it or lose it funds, right? The Quimby?
Well, no,
They're not.
no.
They
But
are.
they will be there and can be used for recreation purposes.
Forever?
I believe that there is a limit on it, but I think that limit is five years if they're not allocated to a project.
Okay, so we have, what, a couple more years left on this? 2 to 3?
Well, we would have the time that, from when they were paid, they were not all paid at the same
That's
time.
exactly right.
So there should be some funds in there that are gonna be quite a bit older than
Well,
other
that's my
funds.
question. I want to
Yeah.
make sure that we're not having to redistribute any of these. And so you're positive about that.
I think we answered that question when we had the CIP discussion last time, because you asked that question at that time. And so, we answered
I
that
don't
and
remember
said,
the answer.
yeah, the answer was yes, that there was time to do this, but that we wanted to see these improvements made because there were ADA improvements and the buildings were, 18 years old, and we felt like at the time there was a need to look at expanding the facility because of the health and fitness, demand.
And it wasn't anything we're actually writing a check for, and these funds weren't funds that would be part of either the bond funds would use for canal or infrastructure improvements in Silver Rock. They were other dedicated funds that had that option. And I look at it as, this is almost could be a jump start to what the future at Silver Rock could be in terms of just having additional development to bring the health and wellness component to get more people active in the city while the ultimate destination is being developed. And there's more for them to do down the road, and it needs it. We're losing members to go to Indio and Jocelyn and Mizell because they're nicer physical plants.
And it's
And we're
used
not
by
getting
all
that
adults in the
multi-
community, not
multi-generational.
just older adults. It's used
Right.
by all adults in the community, and in the evening, it's opened up to the entire community. So it really does function as a community center, most of the time.
And if I remember, when you were proposing an expansion, you also talked about the ability for rental fees and different events that would pretty much become a wash with the operational expenses close to that on an annual basis, right? With any additional staff or utilities required to run the
Well, the way
facility.
this would fall out, if you decide to do the expansion, we would be looking at a fee to use the fitness portion of that building, and that would
Help
cover,
offset as well.
it would offset the cost to do that, for the operation.
A question in regards to that fee. I wasn't here when you guys arranged the agreement with Desert Recreation regarding their project.
Mhm.
Do we have a term on that agreement with them?
We do. It was a 5-year term at the time we put together an agreement with them. And the way that worked, council member, was that we assisted them. We actually gave them QIMI funds for the equipment in that building.
Okay.
And then they were to use that equipment and make that a fitness facility, because it really was, it was very underused at the time. So that created market share, and we put that in the report. They had 44,000 people using the facility
When's
last
that-
year.
What's that 5-year period over?
I think we're going into our third
Third year,
fiscal year,
yeah.
so it's
Okay,
been
so we
open
got a
2
couple
years.
more years.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I might be concerned about this if we had not had a thorough discussion at the budget time
Right.
and made these decisions and allocated the funds for what was sensible at that time. And as far as what is going on with the state of California, that was going on then. It's still going on. It could be still going on tomorrow. We had that discussion thoroughly. If anybody at that time thought there was a better chance of getting or keeping the 41 million than there is today, then shame on them, because I've always considered it gone money. And I actually, some of that has even changed, that there, you know, it might not all be gone money, even though it might take us.
Could be worse with the land.
Yeah. But I think all those things are taken into consideration, and I'm pleased and I'm happy to see that we're moving forward with this. I do want to get my 2 cents in at this point though, and highly recommend that somewhere along the line we continue to call this not only whatever we want to call this new part, but there still has to be a recognition that this is a senior center. We have a very active senior community, and I know that title in and of itself might be trite, or might be dated, or might be whatever.
Boring.
Or it might be boring, and maybe when you are a senior, sometimes you are very damn boring.
Speak for yourself.
Well, I doubt that I'm one of those that's boring. But, no, it can have a joint use, joint name, joint whatever you want to call it, but I don't think we walk away from something that was pretty tried and true and a very significant part of the community.
We'd like to bring that part back. Once we
Yeah.
get further along in the process and are able to talk to some of the users of the center and just people in the community, we'd like to bring some options back for you.
Sure. Anyway, I'm comfortable that we continue on this.
Me too. So, may I make a motion?
Well, just a comment, Lee, I appreciate you wanting to bring this up, because it's a concern that we look at it, and an economic concern that we all have for the city about the direction we're going, and that, so it's good to bring it up. We may not think that it's a problem at this stage of the game, but it's good to discuss it to make sure that we all understand what is happening.
Well, you know, and like I mentioned regarding Silver Rock, and our negotiations with Silver Rock, there is, you know, obviously we know Silver Rock is gonna make a tremendous effect on our city. And that we don't know what we're going to need to do with Silver Rock and how we're gonna make improvements, whether it be to the golf course or other improvements to that property for the new developer, hopefully. And so I think we're spending money we shouldn't right now, because we don't know what's gonna be required at Silver Rock. And like I mentioned earlier regarding this project, the city of La Quinta has put substantial investments in this area of our town for the convenience of our citizens. Whether it has been at the Boys and Girls Club for many years for a fitness center, or the new fitness center with the Parks and Rec at the park, or the senior center, or the library, or the historical museum, or the campus. All of which has not provided any services of that sort to that community of La Quinta above Highway 111. I mean, there's at least 30 to 40% of our town that's north of La Quinta, of 111, that does not have this type of facilities available to them in a simple manner as we do here in the Cove. So I think we're paying tremendous injustice to those residents that live north of 111. And I'm against this for as well as Silver Rock as well as those that live above 111.
Okay?
Okay, with that, I'd like to move approval for the request for proposal to obtain design build services for the La Quinta Community Health and Wellness Center, project number 2013-11.
Second.
Then moved in second. All in favor?
Against?
Yes, okay. 4 and 1. Okay. All right, we'll move on now to our study session. Go back to item number 2, and it's CoreQuest Enforce Reporting System Update. Staff report, please, Tim.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and City Council members. Council will recall last fall we purchased the Go Request and system basically for citizen requests for the departments excluding the code compliance department, and we picked up Go Enforce for those requests. Well, it's been 6 months since we went live, and well, actually about 7 months now, but I thought I would update the council on how it's going and take a look at some of the reports now that kind of we can get an idea of who's using the system and how it's being used. The goals of the system were basically to create a way of automating or recording automatically the work order system that Public Works has had for a number of years, where we were basically taking the hours by hand and creating the reports that you used to see in my department report. It was kind of labor intensive and not a very exact science, and so one of the goals of this was to create a work order system for Public Works. We also wanted to improve communication and the level of service with the public, in that there was a variety of means of communicating with the city before, either mostly by phone, some by fax, some by email. We wanted to automate this better and give better feedback to the people making service requests. That was another goal that we had. And then finally, we wanted to get into the 21st century, as we talked about the technology, or Chris talked about the technology earlier, in developing a mobile app that people that so wanted to use cell phones and so forth, smartphones, could send their issues directly to staff and go directly into the system that way. And so that was the genesis of the program. So where do we stand 6 months later? Well, as I mentioned, we had a soft launch in January, and then we actually advertised and formally launched the program in February of 2013. We had, as you'll see, almost 2,000 requests that we responded to, and then we have 6 months of data to take a look at. I got to confess up front, there are some differences in the way some of the departments reported and stuff that we're still massaging, and also there's some very small sample sizes in some cases that kind of skew the data a little bit, and I'll point those out as we go through there. And then finally, we want to talk a little bit about the lessons that we've learned and where we're going in terms of training staff some more, and also doing some marketing to further get the word out about the system. So the first attachment that I gave you was the graph that shows predominantly the use of the system by Public Works, and that we had about almost 1,850 of the requests total came into the Public Works Department. But this number also includes the number of internally generated requests, which quite frankly is about 85 to 90% of that number. And so that's kind of why we're seeing such an exaggerated amount in the Public Works Department.
Tell me again why Public Works is boom and everybody else is way down here with 1 or 2 phone calls?
Well, because when we were we were recording the work that we were doing internally as well. So when the guys come in, assign tasks, they were going out and tracking the amount of hours that they were spending on something, materials and so forth, and so that we could automate that work order system that I was mentioning. So a lot of the requests in Public Works were generated internally, so that's why in the other departments weren't necessarily doing that. In fact, when we were looking at the data, it was apparent also in the code compliance issue. We're only listing 74 or 4% of the cases as being in the code compliance area. It's probably about double that number because some of the requests came directly to staff. They handled it without actually putting it into the system. So that's one of the training lessons we learned, is that we need to have all of the departments recording the information the same way.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Okay, and then you can see community services had about 14 requests, planning had 7, and then city clerk even had 1. So if we, and they handled it on time, by the way, so very important. If we look down at the breakdown of the Public Works requests, it's kind of hard to see on this size screen. It's the next slide. I'll just give you the highlights. The graffiti was by far the top bar there, 440 requests there, including, again, I'm talking about internal as well as external. Traffic signals were another 18% requests. Tree trimming was about 15% of the Public Works requests. Debris, litter removal, and street sign repairs and maintenance were another 13% each. So that kind of gives you an idea of the breakdown of what the maintenance division spends its time doing for the city, as well as the signal department. If we look at the next slide, we get kind of an idea of how the work flows through the city. When the project went online, or when GoRequest came online in January, you can see that the ramp up, the ones before that were more or less just internal and some test requests, but then we kind of had a peak in April. You can see the number of both open and closed requests kind of peaked there, and then at the end of July again, the number of closed requests peaked. The difference there being the open or the blue requests are the number of requests coming in or number of internal requests generated. Each category has its own time frame attached to it. So, for instance, the graffiti removal has a 24-hour timeline required of it, whereas some of the other longer lead times go up to about 10 days is the default. So when you see the closed items, those are the number of items that were closed for that given month, and then kind of the lighter line running underneath is giving the number of open requests we have at any one time, and so we closed the lot out in July, and that's why it goes down to 0 there. The next slide is one of the ones I was talking about where we had some low data sets. As I mentioned, there wasn't a lot of city clerk requests or community services requests, but they were able to close all of theirs on time. So they got 100% marks. So that was good.
There were 14 and there were 1.
Yeah, there was the building and safety division had a lower score, largely because of the code compliance issues. We have the default set. It's still at 10 days, and a lot of their requests go out, turn into code cases, and so extend 30, 60 days or more. I should point out that somebody by the name of T. Hardtongue was a frequent user of the app, had 20 requests. He was the leader in the building and safety department. Yeah, so he's still out there working on
Was he trying to pick up some extra cash or something?
I think he was just trying to give the new community development director a hard time. Planning had there was only 3 sign requests, and so one of them was a test case, and one didn't get done on time, so it only recorded 33% completion. So that's another low sample. Yeah. And then in my department, in Public Works, we had a 75% completion, and that was on quite a few requests. The leading one that we had the hardest time completing on time was the traffic signal request that we get from everything from coordination to why can't I have a stop sign here, to,
You missed the best story.
Oh, I was gonna get to that one, that was later. But we were only able to complete about a third of them in 10 days, and it's mostly because Nazir and the traffic signal technician have to go out and investigate. And signal coordination and signal timing isn't one where you want to just automatically go out and change it to what the person asked, just in case there's ramifications of doing that. So that's why that one probably deserves to have a little bit longer lead time for investigation. Graffiti, we did better. We were at 67% when we had requests inside of the right-of-way, so we were not quite meeting our goal there. A little bit better in parks. We were able to get the graffiti down 80% of the time within 24 hours. So that's kind of the breakdown there. The next metric we had was, and this is real hard to read, but it's the FAQ effectiveness. Basically, the more blue you see, the more answers people were able to get online on that particular topic. And then if it turned into a request, it goes on to the green side. The graffiti is again tops, and I think the next one is for tree trimming. So we get a lot of people questioning those things. As you move down the list, you were able to get their answers off of the FAQ screen, so that was helpful. The next chart is probably the one that caused me the most head scratching. It's how the requests are reported, and the large pink area would indicate that we almost got predominantly phone requests, but it also includes the internal request, which I found out after looking closer at Go request is actually the default mode. So any internal requests, most of them got reported as phone requests. So we're going to fix that in the next 6 months and give a separate category for internal requests so that it won't skew this pie as much as it has here. Basically, I looked at the overall numbers, and I'd say we're getting about 35 to 40% of the citizen requests are coming in using either the iPad or iPhone or Android app or the web, which are the 3 preferred modes because that requires the least amount of staff time to answer those. I think our target should be, I've heard cities have up to 80% of their requests coming in via one of those 3 forms, and so I think that would be a good goal for the city to try and get to, which is going to be a point that I'll get to when we start talking about marketing. One last, second to last chart I'll show you. This is the distribution of the requests across the city. You'll see that North La Quinta is well represented in terms of the number of green arrows.
Those flowers we pulled out.
Yeah. Another frequent requester is last name Jonason, not first name Tim though. Lower, and then you can also see a number of requests down in the cove. The red indicate overdue items, and so we can get an update geographically also pretty quickly as to where the requests are going for Go requests and Go, of course. And then the last metric I'll show you is
Looks
just
like PGA West was very happy.
for the most part. Wade's doing a good job there. The last is they also have send out surveys. We got 35 back from our customers, and you can see from everything from employee effectiveness, the time to respond, the courtesy level of the employees, and the expectations that they were largely met or got superior ratings, and so that's a good sign that at least the people that are using the system are pretty happy. There is one case I bring up to show you that people have high expectations of at least our traffic signal timing. We had one that was unmet when a lady wanted to be able to drive Washington Street from Avenue 52 all the way to the freeway with her speed control set at the speed limit, at the posted speed limit, and thought our signal timing was off if she couldn't do that.
You can't do that.
So, so that was a pretty tall order. We can get her usually there on 1 or 2 stops, but.
I have made it from the top of the cove on Washington, all the way to the freeway at about 5:30 in the morning.
Right.
Oh, 5:30 in the morning.
Yeah,
Okay.
but I'm not, and it's not super speeding either,
Right.
but there's no other traffic and there's nobody else to trip the lights for any reason. So you can just keep kind of rolling, and if you have to go a little faster because you might not, then you can do that. But it is, you can do it.
It's possible, even during some of the, busier times of the day, still I'm, able to get from City Hall a lot of times to the freeway with 1 or 2 stops, so. But anyway, that gives you an idea that, you try to meet people's expectations, but sometimes it's difficult, especially signal timing, because you're involving trade-offs, obviously, with the side streets, trying to keep them happy. So the next steps, as I see it, for Go Request and Go Enforce, I'd like to improve the marketing. I think we could get a lot more people using both the app and also the website to log in their requests. Like to see more participation and get that number up to maybe, 3 or 4% of the city using it at a minimum. I think that could be a target. That's going to require getting more of the marketing information, and that's where Maria's come in, and she's been helpful. I don't know if you've seen these cards, but my staff hands them out, and so does staff at the counter. It's basically got the QR code, so if you have a smartphone, you take a picture of it, and then it's downloaded to your phone. So we're going to be pushing a lot more of those things out, and coming up with a campaign to get more people to realize that we have that system. We need to work on uniformity, on training, on inputting the information so that in 6 months I can present a little bit more meaningful graphs and stuff that'll have the information a little bit more accurate than we do right now. And that's going to involve bringing in the users groups again that are inputting this information into Go Request, and so that we can make sure that everybody's doing it the same. And also remind people when they are calling in that we do have the app and the website that they can go to. I think that's an important component of handling those requests on the phone. And then we'll report back again in 6 months, and we will let you know how we're doing.
So how do you feel about it?
I feel like it's worked well internally. I'm a little disappointed in the results externally that we can't get more than former employees to log onto the system and use it, to the extent. I think that, I was happy with the surveys that did come back from the people that are using it, that they seem to think it's a valuable tool. So far so good. I mean, it's been 6 months. It really takes at least a year or two to get something like this rolled out completely.
Yeah, I think so too. Were you here when we used to report in, it wasn't in the gym, but that's where we would do it now. We chose to do that, but we used to report in there the monthly cost of graffiti.
Right.
And, when you start talking to the people in your community about,
Right.
where costs are, what money
Right.
is spent on, it makes a difference. They kind of like to see that it's $3,000 a month going out to clean up graffiti, and that could have planted a park, if you will.
Right. And we have a lot better measurement of different tasks like that. Street sweeping is another one that we can track pretty well now because we're doing it all internally, so we can figure out what that costs per hour. Graffiti, a lot of the just the regular maintenance tasks that we really had no way of quantifying before. Now we can do that.
Yeah.
So I have a question. Is there a way, since we have the top graffiti, some of those things, is there a way to reprioritize the listing to the frequently responded to and reprogram the software so people can just go to that as opposed to the alphabetized listing? Because I still, like utility failure, water pipe, or
Right.
pipe break, those aren't on there, and I still don't feel like there's a good category to place those things. And if you got 4 or 5 on the top of the list that are happening a lot,
Right.
If there's a way that they can just, top 5 requests or something like that. And I was wondering if maybe we can add the Go Request link option on our Facebook page, since we're doing so much to get clicks on Facebook and likes, to somehow link that as well as the website. And then I don't know if on our, the La Quinta one that gives you the options of restaurants and things like, how do we add the Go Request as an option here as they're out visiting our restaurant, shopping, golf, hotels, etc., and cross market that.
Right. I think Maria and I have talked a lot about it, and I already started talking to Edie also about, the new digital contract that we're gonna have with Kate Spates' group, that this is a real good time to incorporate Go Request into that media push and really, take advantage of that. But I agree that all of our digital products should work together.
So the question is, as we look at the automated online permitting process, I know this is just one component, but
Yeah.
do you want Go Request to still be here, or is whatever we're gonna get next gonna be better? And is it a phase out at some point in the next
We're
move
working on
improvement?
that.
Yeah.
We're working on
Because
that.
at least this is getting people into the techno world.
Right.
If there's gonna be another element, I don't know what the renewal is on this, or if it's an annual ad fee.
This is an annual fee,
Annual
so we can stop this program, I think, which is 30-day notice, if we decide that whatever the permitting software does it better. So we're gonna talk to Go Request to see how it's able to interface with whatever permitting software we have, so we can make that more seamless. But we just don't know the answer to that yet. And we will, and I think we can put the order of requests in any order that we want, and so we'll talk to Gov Outreach to
I mean, and
do
if it's
that.
still an app that we are marketing and that we want citizens to download, I think that's what we learned. I mean, we studied this data, and what we learned was that we really do need to do a better job with the outreach in terms of getting it out there and letting citizens know that they can download the app. The preference and the goal was that, to have a high usage of that app. So,
Well, and maybe part of that marketing piece is putting something in the next gem that actually gives a condensed version of this report. 6 months into Go Request, our residents have, utilized it X amount of almost 2,000, 2,500 times. Top requests for this, so people are like, oh wow, that almost prompts somebody to go, hey, I've seen weeds on that lot, or I've seen graffiti over here, and that might prompt them to download it from just seeing that other people are using it.
We also talked about like focusing maybe on one issue a month, like got graffiti or something like that, and then, Go Request,
Right.
and do individual items that seem to be at the top of the list, because maybe giving them too much of a list is overwhelming
Right.
people, because then
Yes.
they forget what issues can be handled that way.
One thing I liked too was that, and I didn't know Go Request did this, but it assigns a tracking number to every citizen request,
Yes.
and then sends a message back to the user with the expected completion date. That's just really neat.
Right.
Yeah, I like that.
Is there anybody out there that's taking pictures of a problem that they see a lot that needs cleaned up, or sprinklers that's, running out in the street, and sending those pictures in?
We get quite a few of those,
Do
actually.
you? That's good.
It makes it so easy, because you're
Yeah.
standing there and it GPS is the address, and you press the graffiti button, and it all just kind of goes, so
Yeah.
they know what to look for.
That's great.
It's
Thanks.
just when you're driving 50 miles an hour, it's hard to take a picture of it.
Or there's no place to park, you get out of the car,
Any other questions of staff? Seeing none, we don't, no action is required on this, so we'll move on to the next item of the study session, and it's brand identity review. We'll ask for a staff report.
Thank you. This evening, I'm going to have Tustin Larson give you this report on branding. He's the one that put this information together and worked with Carino FG Creative on some of this brand promise and brand positioning. So testing.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. We'll go through this information quickly. We know we've got other things to do, and some of the stuff we want to talk to you about, just in brief, kind of what a brand identity is and some of the tools that the positioning statement and a brand promise are. So we'll go through it real quick here. Brand identity is a cornerstone of a successful marketing. It's really about knowing who you are, understanding what you have to offer, and identifying what's different from the other cities in the valley. FG Creative and our staff, we talked to residents and visitors. We did some online surveying, and we asked visitors about, and residents both, about what they value about La Quinta. With that, we went and created a positioning statement with FG Creative. A positioning statement is an internal statement that really guides marketing decisions. It really articulates unique qualities about our city. It defines where we stand in the market around the other cities in the valley. And so we took those values, we took that information pieces that were given to us, and FG, with the help of staff, created this positioning statement. I'll read for you. The city of La Quinta's quaint settings, tucked in the cove of the Santa Rosa Mountains, presents the premier playground for active living. Known for its pristine surroundings, the community inspires art and culture, health, wellness, and serenity among its visitors and residents. Resort escapes, world-class golf, healthy dining, boutique shops, and the historic charm of the village, La Quinta is the getaway you deserve for a week, a month, a lifetime. So it's a really important tool to have a positioning statement. It really, kind of like I said, it guides the marketing decisions. And after the presentation is over with, we can talk about if you guys agree with that, or if there's some things we can do to change it. But the next piece that I want to talk about is the brand promise. And the brand promise, usually it's an external statement given to members of the public, and it's often thought of as a slogan, but it's really not. It's really a short, concise message that delivers on that positioning statement. Popular examples are what happens in Vegas, stays in Vegas, America's finest city is San Diego's position or brand promise, and then Hershey, Pennsylvania is the sweetest place on earth. So those are examples of brand promises that cities have.
San Diego has another worry.
Yeah, that could be changing very soon.
Yeah, and you know what? They do change. Brand promises do change from time to time. That's why it's good to have this kind of a review every so many years. But La Quinta's is the gem of the desert. It has been since the city was incorporated, and it is recognized by residents, visitors of La Quinta, Coachella Valley, and beyond. And just an interesting little story for you. I was out buying furniture in the Inland Empire recently. I just bought a house, and we went to a furniture store, and the salesperson, he asked us where we live, and I said, La Quinta. And I was ready to say, it's by Palm Springs, and because you typically have to do that. And he said, oh yeah, La Quinta, the gem of the desert. And I thought, wow. And he was from Los Angeles, so he wasn't even a local from the Coachella Valley, but he recognized it as the gem of the desert. So it really does kind of resonate with folks, both locals and beyond. But we wanted to talk to you about some next steps to those two tools that we have. They really, like I said, they guide our marketing, and we wanted to verify that these things still resonate with you all and are still important, because we next would like to bring some possible concept ideas for some new marketing logo choices, as well as some new marketing campaigns with the new taglines, fonts, color schemes, you have it. So that's my presentation. We'll open up to a discussion and any questions you may have.
Thanks, Dustin. Questions of staff?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Regarding the positioning statement, the city of La Quinta, quaint setting tucked in the cove of Santa Rosa. Keeping in mind 40% of our city is not tucked away in the cove.
I could have predicted that one.
Yeah.
So I would just ask that we remember the other 40% of our city. Otherwise, I think you guys are right on.
Well, I think that Lee has an excellent point, and I can remember 20 years ago when we had some discussions about the north side, and now we're going to incorporate all of that. Yeah. The interesting thing is that there has been fewer, in fact, there haven't been any, to my knowledge, residents that have come forward with a complaint of the north side, the south side, or the cove. There used to be, that the cove got everything, and at the time when that was saying the cove's getting everything, the north side was actually getting everything because that's where the growth was, and the cove wasn't getting anything. But there's not been anything like that for years. The community seems to accept it ourselves as a whole, and not with 111 being the north side and the south side. We don't really hear that from our residents. No, I mean, I don't know, you live over there, maybe you hear it.
Well, I do hear it, and I do hear that the city continues to improve the area of the code as far as community services. And we don't in North La Quinta.
Well,
What have we done?
we're not doing anything for the cove.
Okay.
You
We
just
put
got
$3
Fred
million
Waring
into the
done.
senior center.
But
So
you-
we are doing something for
But
the code.
that's not for the cove,
That's for this
the
community
city.
that uses it.
It's
People
the
are not
south
gonna
side of-
drive all the way down here to use it when there's nothing. So, speaking as one that lives up there and listens to the folks that do live up there, that's what I hear.
I hear it when I'm campaigning. I campaign a lot on the north side because 40% of our residents live on the north side.
Of course they do.
And they're here year round and they vote. It's a great place to campaign, and that is one of the complaints, constant complaints, that there's no community center on the north side or.
They're gonna have the CV link. It's gonna rock.
Okay,
And all the businesses that go with that.
so the brand positioning statement, I think it's nice wording. What's the historic charm of the village?
Well,
Not Old Town, protect the village. Historic charm of the village is what? And why it's the getaway you deserve for a week, a month, or a lifetime. There's no place to stay there, well, there's the resort, but what is that saying?
Well, I think that says, honestly, Christy, I think that says, a lot of the original things in La Quinta were kind of centered in the village area, the original museum, La Quinta Resort. So that's kind of the historic, charmish area. The getaway thing is more about kind of drawing our visitors in to maybe become residents and bringing folks in to come and stay, for an extended amount of time. So I think that's the direction that FG went along with some of the direction from our folks that we took that survey data from. That this really they drove kind of this positioning statement by some of the stuff, the data that we collected was driven by the information that we got.
Well, I like I like some of this wording because it tells you what you can do, like the premier playground for active living. So I'm assuming that by this that we've got places where we can bike and hike and all kinds of things. That's what that tells me. And some of the rest of it is good too. I guess I have more of a problem with the gem of the desert. I mean, I'm glad that someone brought it up to you, but why would that make someone want to come to La Quinta? What does that say about La Quinta? The Hershey's tells you it's the sweetest place on earth. I mean, they obviously have a connection there. And I don't have any answers for you. But with this, what I would like are some other choices. Give me something else other than the gem of the desert tells me absolutely nothing. Are we mining diamonds here? Or I'm not trying to be funny, I'm just saying it just doesn't, why is that a big brand promise? What is it, what are you saying?
What we heard people say is that they considered the city a gem. They considered coming here, being here, a beautiful place. We heard the description as being a beautiful place. And so the gem of the desert seems to resonate with a lot of people and has for some time. So that's the interpretation, and so many people knew it and described it to us. I guess, Tustin's example was just an example, but we heard it extensively as we talked to people about it and as they described it to us. So it seemed to us to resonate with it. It was as if that was part of the city of La Quinta is a gem.
Yeah.
And so that's why that came back to us. But if that's not if that does not resonate, or if you want us to look at something, we'd be happy to bring back other ideas. We just wanted to share with you what we heard. We didn't hear anything come back that really gave us any idea that people felt differently about that situation.
Well, but if we're trying to attract tourists, we need to tell them what we are. And the Gem of the Desert doesn't tell me anything. It tells me maybe that the other cities there aren't just as nice as ours. I'm just kidding. But I don't know, it doesn't speak to me about why I would want to come to this particular place. Now, if your surveys were with people who already live here, or I don't know what your
It actually went out in a number of ways. So Facebook was one of the ways, and so we got quite a few, because a lot of Facebook users are tourists.
right.
So,
Well, I may be all washed up on it, just doesn't tell me anything.
I think, just like you just said, it's a beautiful place. La
that's,
Quinta is a beautiful
Right.
place, and many people may not understand Gem of the Desert per se, but it is. And we hear so many people that come here that have bought homes in here because it's such a beautiful place. And maybe that's a line we could use. It's a beautiful place.
You know how many years it's taken us to recognize Gem of the Desert? You know, the only city that we have to fight for recognition is Palm Springs. And it's Palm Springs this, Palm Springs that, always Palm Springs. Many years ago, you know, you didn't say Gem of the Desert, you didn't say La Quinta, you said Palm Springs. Well, yeah, the little city that's to the south and east of Palm Springs. You know, I'm not looking for a change. So the Gem of the Desert, we've tried too long to bring this into focus to outside entities to come in. So to change it, this connotation at this stage of the game, forget it as far as I'm concerned. There's no other city that has this connotation that we have, Gem of the Desert, other than Palm Springs. And it isn't that they have a logo that they're just promoting their name, Palm Springs. It's because it's world known and that. So our focus is to build up more on what we already have, meaning the Gem of the Desert, and that, and promote it to be in somewhat of a competitiveness with the city of Palm Springs. And that. I think we do a good job. I see it, as Tustin said, in regards to Gem of the Desert. You see some guy from LA, and I see it from golfers that come into our community. I've seen it in Vegas and that. When I talk to people and they say, "Oh, you're from La Quinta?" Yeah, that's where they have the golf tournament, the classic, the Balboa Classic, and that. And you had people like Merv Griffin living out there, and Andy Williams. And I said, yeah. So they recognize that. Not everybody, but a lot of them do. So to change at this stage of the game, I just think it would be a mistake.
Well, I'd like to thank Christy, because for 18 or 19 years I haven't thought much of Gem of the Desert, but I never said anything, because it seemed to be, it was already accepted at that time, and after 18 more years or 19 more years, it is part and parcel of, I think, people's consciousness of the city. So I'm not suggesting that we just go out there and uniformly remove that, but I've always thought it was kind of cheesy. You know, it's kind of cheesy. I think unique among many is, you know, a whole lot better than the Gem of the Desert. And you know, we can sit here and wordsmith, and that's what I think maybe we all are doing. But you know, when I read this, the city of La Quinta's quaint setting, we don't have we are where we are, and we are tucked in the cove for 60% of us. There's 40% that isn't, but there wasn't anything quaint about that until we made it quaint. And we just did that with, by the way, the city grew. So I can wordsmith this, the historic charm of the village. I got it circled. The historic charm of the village was the sandbar and the 7-Eleven for probably, you know.
And that was a biker's hangout.
And that was a biker's hangout. And the park down there, you know, had more naps when you had took the kids down to play their baseball games, and you're standing down there with the old Coachella fly, you know, wave. So I mean, there was no charm to the village.
You make all that point.
Charm is what we wanted. Charm is what we wanted, and I
You're
think,
talking a lot of years ago.
yeah, well, the charm came in with Old Town. I mean, but none of that's historic. But that's, you know, I just love traveling around California and say I live in La Quinta, and I say we're one of the few cities that has a village, and in our village we have an Old Town. So we have an Old Town in our village. So, you know, not very many places have that. But, you know, there's just kind of been an evolution of things that have taken place here. And it's kind of made us unique among many. And I think that La Quinta can stand alone anytime that it wants to, and that we always have, and we probably always will. And I don't have any improvements to this wordsmithing, because if I improved it, somebody else would want to improve my wordsmithing. And it's a never-ending kind of discussion that goes on. But I do think that there are some maybe slight changes that could be made, because I don't know about the quaint setting, and I don't know about the historic charm of the village. But have fun with it, guys. Marketing is, thank goodness Stan isn't here right now. He got some ideas.
Oh, yes, Stanley Wood.
All right, my turn. When you're talking about defining the positioning statement, it says it articulates the unique qualities of the city and defines where it stands in the market. Is that where it stands right now, or where we want to stand in the future?
Well, it really defines where we stand now, because this is a positioning statement is meant to be kind of molded as we go along, and it changes as the demographic changes. So it really is about a snapshot in time.
It's a snapshot of right now.
Yeah, correct.
Which doesn't really help us if we're trying to project for the future. I'm just saying, but okay, I'll go with that. I feel like when I first read the positioning statement, I felt like number one, for active living was thrown in there because someone said, oh crap, Linda's gonna go, we gotta do a healthy eating, active living something.
That's
so
right.
Let's put that in there.
That's right.
And it felt like it was a sleepy little town to me. When I read that, I thought, this is a sleepy little town. And I remember coming out here when I got transferred, and we started in Indio, and my husband and I went from city to city to city to city to city. I read about it, I visited places, and I went, I gotta be in La Quinta, because it's kind of got that small town feel, but it's got amenities and shopping, but it's progressive, and there's some youth, and there's some seniors, and it just felt like it was on the edge of good things. And I wanted to be a part of that. And I called it Young with History, because I felt like it was a growing city, yet it had a lot of history to it in terms of the resort and the Kuya Indians and everything about its setting. So, you know, I'm not loving the positioning statement, but I'll tell you what I wrote on the Gem of the Desert. I wrote keep and expand. I mean, I agree with the mayor, and I guess I look at it as when, I wasn't here when the Gem of the Desert was created, but I look at it as either in the past or when it was created, we were that hidden gem. We were that city that was trying to compete with Palm Springs, and we were trying to find that identity, and we were that hidden gem that people needed to come and discover on their own. So by saying we're the Gem of the Desert, they needed to go and explore that, whether it was uncovering diamonds or what, but and find that it was a beautiful city. And I see that in the future then, a gem is something special, and it's something valued, and it's something you keep. And people who love La Quinta keep everything about La Quinta with them. And when you look at what we're gonna do with Silver Rock, I still think that's applicable. I mean, Silver Rock is also potentially could be a gem of some sorts. So, but maybe, you know, maybe there's something else that goes along with that. But it depends on what you're selling. So when you have all this beautiful stuff that you're promoting, that's what makes us the gem. It's not because we're by Santa Rosa or we're this or we're that, or it's a combination of all those things that make us the gem. But I felt like that statement was kind of like it was a sleepy little town and someone threw active living in there. I just felt like Young with History was progressive yet old, yet there was options and but it's like we're big city amenities in a small package that is just pleasing and peaceful yet buzzing with hope and energy. It must be the coffee.
Brownie.
But I agree with you, Mayor. Gem of the
Well,
desert.
you
It
know-
just rolls, because Indio, the place to be. Well, guess what?
Yeah.
La Quinta's the place to be because we're the gem of the desert. So it just,
I was gonna say, it's interesting because a few weeks ago, we were dealing with the bridge
Yeah.
over I-10, and I don't know who made the comment, but, you know, Indio's name is on it, and they said, well, should we have La Quinta, should we argue the point about La Quinta? We don't need our
We
name
don't
on the
need our
bridge.
name on it.
Hey, everybody knows La Quinta, they know what we are.
when
and
they
that-
get off the
and
freeway,
so,
that's where they're
you know,
going.
And that says it all. And that,
Yeah.
do we need our name posted on I-10, sitting there on a bridge and that? Forget it. We have our own identity, and I think those people who recognize it, and many of them
While you're driving
do,
to La Quinta.
yeah, but many of our competitors say, you know, you have a beautiful city. Those who come out here drive our streets, which have medians, which are landscaped and that. Our roads are all paved in good shape and that. So what else do you want?
Well, look at some of the
Good place.
applicants when we were doing the commission interviews. When they used to just frequent here, vacation here, and they fell in love with La Quinta, and now they're here and
Sure.
volunteering and getting involved because of whatever that atmosphere offers, whatever it I don't know, it tackles everybody in their life, something special.
Good. And I think when Silver Rock,
Yeah.
one of these days, gets completed, that's gonna bring in a whole new concept about what this city is.
Mhm.
There's no question
We
about it. We will have a unique facility there that is unsurpassed in this area, that's for sure.
One year we did some contract interviews for the new marketing group. This was several years ago. One of the groups came in, and I think Lee might remember because I think he and I voted for this other group that didn't get the contract, but they brought in imitation gems. You know, there was a big diamond and a ruby, and there was just a lot of things that they were going to be able to incorporate into some marketing material. And I thought it was great. There's use the gem and play with it a little bit, but no, didn't go. So
What do you mean it didn't go? We have that gym everywhere.
well, we have the one, but I mean they
Okay.
brought it in for
Ah.
the actual stones and they were going to be able to. They had quite a little marketing.
Okay, unless there's any other questions from staff?
Well, what we hear you say is we'll do some tweaking with the language. Next time when you come back to show you the next steps, you can take a look at that and see if you like that better. I'm hearing generally that the gem of the desert stays.
Yeah.
And we'll tweak the message.
Just
because
expand
it's
on
just
it.
statement. And we'll bring you back new items.
Expand on it a little bit,
Yeah.
you can still keep it in there, but maybe make another sentence.
Well, that's
Gem
what
of the
we-
desert's phenomenal.
Well, and we've got some other ideas
Okay.
for,
Different
other
kinds.
options for the marketing we'll bring back.
Let's grab it.
You got enough information?
We do, thank you.
Good.
I'm really nervous about, new fonts and colors and things, so have a
Come
whole
with
lot
us.
of options.
You like change,
We'll
right?
plan a whole Saturday for that.
I like good change.
Okay, let's move on to reports and informational items. Linda, you want to start us off?
I have no meetings. So I have nothing to report on my
you have-
CBAG or CBB obligations at this time.
Okay. Christie?
Yes. Reminder that the super pet adoption, I know I bring this up every time, but it's coming up in November, and it's at the same place in Rancho Mirage, Whitewater.
Whitewater Park, across from the river.
Yeah.
What dates in November? I'll keep looking.
November 23rd and 24th.
And this is for what?
The Loving All
Super-
Animals.
Oh,
three.
Super pet adoption. So that's coming up. And so I am actually giving a report on the animal campus in case you didn't get that. I didn't say that. Also, I don't know, did anyone call you, Edie, on this with respect to putting a link on our website maybe?
Because someone called me and I tried to call them back and they didn't return my call, so.
Well,
I
I'll give
is
this to you.
that same
Yeah,
person?
on the way out, yeah.
Okay.
I don't have it. Well, you can just follow it, that's on there. Then, we talked briefly about Bernadette Schwinn, who is the person that lives in Sky Valley that had all the animals and the cruelty to the animals and so forth. And Supervisor Benoit was at this meeting, and so he was the one who really talked about it, and he said, the law is what we must follow. Now, she has been arrested. I don't know what the status is right now, but, and what was going on there was horrible. But the law is the bottom, you know, that's what we're elected to, uphold the law, whether we exactly
Whether
like
you
it.
agree or not.
Yeah. So, and I think it's going to, well, that she's been arrested, I think that will take care of the problem. They have rescued quite a few dogs from there, I think 10 or 12, that are at the animal shelter now, in 1,000 homes, and they're thriving. I guess a little food and water's amazing. The county animals are in an ASPCA competition, and at this point, and I think they get like a grant for $100,000 or something, or I think that's the money if you win, and the winning is the number of adoptions that you have. Yeah.
Wow.
And so right now we're standing number 1 in the country.
Wow.
Yeah. And so things like this really help the adoption fair. And let's see. It's going to cost about $300,000 to do the repairs on the animal campus. And again, I think I told you last time that they're going to start with the floors.
They're gonna start with what?
The floors.
Oh.
They've received some money to do that. And Animal Campus has also been trying to work with the tribe, and occasionally they come to our meetings, but we wanted just to have some kind of rapport with them or dialogue or whatever, and that hasn't happened to our satisfaction just yet. And CVEP, we met at the City of Coachella corporate yard. It was a pretty neat room, wasn't it? It was really nice. I was kind of surprised. And had a nice introduction by Steve last Hernandez.
Right, Steve
And-
Hernandez.
Yeah, and Eduardo Garcia. Bank of America gave a check presentation of $15,000, which is good. This helps CVEP hopefully become more sustainable. And basically, they talked about, there's always a good report on workforce excellence. We have a woman whose name is Sheila Thornton, and she,
Amazing.
talk about energy level.
Amazing.
Oh, she's just incredible, and she's just doing such a good job with the kids. So the hub has been, the iHub has been very successful. It's in Palm Springs, in the Rabobank building, which used to be a jail. And the accelerator campus is just booming. It's just really, really doing well. So in light of that, there has been some discussion about having an iHub on the east side, because it's been successful. My only thought on that is to not bite off more than we can chew. I think when we're more sustainable, CVEP is more sustainable without the grant. They've been getting $1.7 million a year, and that's not going to continue at that rate. That was a 5-year pledge. So then I think we can really, really look at the east side. I agree with that. So that's my report.
Okay. All right, who's next?
Me,
Oh,
none.
Sure.
What?
None.
Sure goes in the minutes.
All right, Lee?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I haven't.
Went to the IID, Imperial Irrigation ECAC Board, and they again brought about these incentives for energy conservation. Edie, the senior center, beloved senior center.
Soon to be wellness center.
The Riverside County came in there and gave a report on helping seniors with their electricity bill. The IID will come in and give a presentation on all these incentives, such as insulation, where the IID will pay 60 cents a square foot to help you increase the insulation. on your property, as well as numerous other Energy Star refrigeration, pumps, windows. There's a whole list of items, and they've increased all of them. So, and they will come to our senior center and give a full presentation to the folks and that about all these different incentives. And again, they raised every single one. They increased all of them. So I'll be glad to give that to you so we can present that. To
Is
the
there a
senior
cap on that?
No.
Time-wise or funds?
center. No, there is not.
Wow.
And so it would behoove us to get in there quicker than later,
Yeah.
you know, because they're going to be pushing this pretty hard down our Crow Valley. But they want to be able to bring it up here as well. And they've got a couple of marketing people specifically just to do this, to talk about it with a number of brochures and things to mail out to give to our citizens. Thank you. That's all I have.
That's it. I had both CVAG and the Sunline Board. Probably you read it in the paper where at CVAG we approved the upgrade loan plan. This is something that the city has approved, and that's the property assessed clean energy program. Will provide home and commercial property owners with affordable financing for eco-friendly upgrades and make their buildings more energy and water efficient with long-term repayments linked to their property taxes. So we did that. And I think I broke a record as chair. We had the shortest meeting, I think, no more than 15 minutes, and we were done and out of there. So I was congratulated by half a dozen different mayors saying, hey, do this all the time. So, but it was good. Sunline, a couple of interesting things that popped up as we approved the contract extension for the interim general manager because we're out interviewing to bring a new general manager in. And that will be, interviews will be held on September 9th for the new general manager. And lastly, for our legal people, Mr. Goldfarb and Rattan & Tucker has been retained, and another contract extended to them for the next year. And that Jeff does a good job on that. We're very happy with him on that.
Is Sunline using, are they using headhunters for to look for a new?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they're out there. They've got several of them that apparently have had experience and are interested, but we'll be doing the interviews on September 9th. And that's all I had. We'll move on to department reports. City manager
Nothing further.
and city attorney.
I gave mine.
You gave yours. City clerk
Nothing additional.
and anybody from the department heads. But I do want to hear something. Frank and I met with the new Griffin Ranch people, and that you want to bring them up to date as to what we're dealing with, or Tim?
Sure. Yeah.
Anything that they wanted to add to it.
Well, the report talks about, doesn't mention names, but they have made progress. Basically, there was a lock between the HOA, the successor to the McCormick group that owned the property before. It was taken over by a bank, and there was some other transactions that happened. The good news to report is that the Lennar folks are actually buying the majority of the lots, and they closed on that on the 31st of July, so it just happened. And so that's basically the lots, not the larger lots around the Griffin Ranch or the Griffin Estate, I should say. It's the production homes around the outside.
For the easterly section.
Yes, and there's actually another section of over 100 homes, I believe, but at the corner of Monroe and 54. That's a different ownership.
Okay, there's 40 acres there on that corner approximately, almost 40 acres. So did Lennar purchase that too, or you said?
No, that's a
or
different
no?
group that bought
It's a
that.
different group?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is Lennar looking to change the plan on that?
You know, I haven't heard
Put a smaller lot or anything?
if they're planning on building.
They are proposing some minor changes to the models, but they want to keep basically the general integrity of Griffin Ranch going forward. So it's not as much of a dramatic departure from what it is. We're still working with them. They've come in and talked with us, shown us some of their floor plans and elevations, but that's still in the works.
Great, good.
And
So,
is
we're looking
this-
forward to having them.
Is this the builder that's gonna do the clubhouse too?
I believe that's part of the.
That's what they had mentioned.
Yeah, part of.
Yeah, they were gonna
That's part of the
complete the
settlement either
agreement
way.
that they had with the homeowners, who were very upset.
It's a dramatically,
That you to finish the clubhouse.
it's a dramatically smaller clubhouse, it's more appropriately sized.
I think we're gonna see that going forward with everything.
Good, the last item is mayor and council members item, anybody have anything? Okay, that's all we have then, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Moved in second, all in favor? Aye. Okay, do you wanna
Want
bring
to
up the rest of
reconvene
your
the housing authority?
housing
I'll
authority?
reconvene the housing authority meeting on Tuesday, August 6th. We have confirmation agenda. Is there any changes to the agenda?
Yes, sir.
Any members? Then we move to approval of minutes of
Move the
July
minutes.
16th.
Second.
We have first, second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Consent calendar, isn't it?
Yeah, no,
Move adjournment.
Adjournment.
Second.
all right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, we're done.
Okay, at this time, I'll call to order the regular meeting of the successor agency to the La Quinta Redevelopment Agency for Tuesday, August 6th, 2013. Let it be known that all agency members are present. First item on the agenda is public comment. I see no public out there, so we'll move on to confirmation of agenda. Any changes by staff,
Nope.
by agency members?
No.
Okay, we'll move on to the consent calendar.
No, approve of minutes of
No,
July 16th.
Yeah,
Second.
minutes of July 16th.
Second.
Motion second?
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes.
Move consent calendar.
Second.
Moved in second, please vote, or
Aye.
say aye.
Move adjournment.
All right,
Move adjournment.
that's it.
Second.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're out of here.
We're adjourned.